Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of BookGoodies Author Series podcasts. I'm your host, Deborah Carney, and today I'm joined by guest Joe. I already forgot your last name. That's bad. Joe Nicassio. So, hi, Joe. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. Why don't you introduce yourself to the folks, since I can't seem to be doing a good job of it, and let us know how you got started writing.
Okay, well, my name is Joe Nicassio, and I'm the head of rapidresultsmarketing.com. And for the last 20 years, I've been a marketing consultant, a sales and marketing consultant. Essentially what I am is I'm a marketing mechanic. So as if if your car was broken, you would take it to an auto mechanic. When your business is broken, you bring it to the marketing mechanic or the business mechanic.
I like it. And I like pitstopinfo.com. That's cute. I like that.
And also, if your business is already working and you want to turbocharge it, I'm the guy that can help you take you to another level.
All right. Wonderful. Now,
and as far as how did I get the book started?
Mm-hmm.
So I've been working with business owners for the last 15, 20 years. I've worked with over 500 business owners in 100 different industries. And what I've come to realize is that when the marketing improves, jobs are created, when the business gets bigger. And I realized that, a lot of the political scene today is, where are the jobs?
Right.
And jobs are not created on a national scale. They're created by thriving businesses, and thriving businesses come from inspired entrepreneurs.
That's excellent. In our main business, we work mostly with affiliate marketers and internet marketers, and they're all very entrepreneurial because and the entire industry, the entire affiliate industry, is very young, and we create jobs every day. Just from people who, need a second income or whatever. The job I do didn't exist 15 years ago, and no one grew up wanting to be an affiliate marketer. So, because there was no such thing to aspire to. So, you're right. A lot of the jobs in this country are coming from entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and with affiliate marketing, actually, it isn't new, because we've had referral marketing. We've had commission-only salespeople, so when you drive a sale to somebody, you get a commission from that. That's actually something that's been happening for a long time, even before the Internet. But the Internet has created a way for people to track it and automate it.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, even if you're an entrepreneur, and even if you don't hire anybody, you create a job for yourself.
Yep, very much so. And now, what qualified you to write this book? You already said a little bit, because you've worked for a lot of companies. But what's your expertise?
Well, my expertise is in sales and marketing, and I've been a sales and marketing consultant for the last 20 years. And people come to me, and their business is slow, and I diagnose what the challenge or the problem is, and then I prescribe a solution for them.
Okay. Do you think that the entrepreneurial spirit in America has died down, or do you think it's more on an upswing?
Well, I think it's different for everyone. I was in front of a group of 50 people they all had bachelor's, master's, and PhDs, and I asked them, how many of you would like to have your own business? And about 60% said yes. And then I asked, how many of you are afraid of starting your own business? And 100% of the hands went up in the room.
Yeah.
And so for people that already are thriving as an entrepreneur, they would say, oh, my entrepreneurial spirit is alive. If you ask somebody that's got a 9-to-5 job and they're afraid, they look at entrepreneurs as these wild risk takers, I would say their entrepreneurial spirit is either dead or severely wounded. So in the book, we talk about the importance of triaging people and treating them as individuals. But for the most part, entrepreneurism is not taught in the school system. And This is one of the reasons people are afraid of starting their own business, is they were never taught how to succeed as an entrepreneur.
Well, and you're correct, because through the years, generations of people would do, what their father did. So, like, in the coal mines, if your dad was a coal miner, you were a coal miner, and your son was. And the same in the auto industry with, they worked in the shops, and, when it was time for the kids to get jobs, they got jobs in the shops, and that kind of job is going away. So, with plants closing and the economy, and, you're not always following in your dad's footsteps anymore with your job. So you kind of have to look around and find something else.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because some people do follow their father's footsteps in terms of, dad worked in the auto factory, I'll work in the auto factory, or dad was a plumber, I'll be a plumber. And that's true. I think what's going on now is we have kind of we've created a whole culture of people that we've indoctrinated an entire culture, and we told them, go to school, get a good education, and get a good job.
Right.
And it used to be true that if you had a good education, there would be a job there. And today it's a big fat lie. If you have a good education, it doesn't guarantee a good job. It doesn't even guarantee a job.
Yeah, it actually delays the process.
Yes. And so we need to have a little shift in the dialogue, a new paradigm, and that is go to school, get a good education, get a good job, or start your own business. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways that we're going to increase the success of that is to put Entrepreneur 101 as an optional class in every high school in the country.
That's a great idea. I think that, and actually, back in upstate New York, where I am from, we actually had that in the high schools, but it was more of an AP level. It was for certain groups of kids where they would do, like lawyers, like you wanted to be a lawyer, so they would put you you could join a class that would take you out there to try out being a lawyer. Or they had these science fairs where you were encouraged to create, be an inventor. But again, at the end of the day, you were expected to go out and get a job, not necessarily take that invention and run with it.
Yeah, we have people that have tremendous skills. I told you I was in this presentation where these people had bachelor's, master's, PhDs. I mean, some of them were architects, some of them were attorneys, some of them, they had MBAs. But what was really going on there was a lot of these people are afraid of selling. They're afraid of rejection. They're afraid of putting their product or service out there. We've become very comfortable with this idea. I go to work, I show up, I do my 9 to 5, I get a paycheck, and I don't want to have all that responsibility of running a business.
Right, and there's also a lot of people that like the structure of having a 9 to 5 job and a steady paycheck. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to know that sometimes the money is going to be there and sometimes it's not.
Well, yeah, and when you start a business, there are no systems.
Right.
There is no structure, so you have to create the structure. So you can be very structured within your own business. It's just you have to create that structure. But on the other side, I'd like to also say that a lot of corporations, that I've worked for, even big corporations, they spend a lot of money on structure, and a lot of their structure's dysfunctional. So. Mm-hmm. Structure isn't, it's like somebody else provides the structure, but are you really maximizing yourself? I say that the greatest risk of all is playing it safe. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, totally. Playing it safe is scary. They, to your point about the corporations and the structure and whether the structure works or not, one of the things is that the people who are getting paid 9 to 5, they may not like the structure, or they need the structural outline. They might not like the way it works, like with meetings and all this other stuff, and they don't have time to do what they feel like they should be doing. But on the other hand, it's at the end of the day, they can say it's not their responsibility, it's their supervisor's responsibility, and that it was part of the structure that kept them from finishing up what they needed to do. And yet there are still people that wouldn't be comfortable breaking out of that box anyway. They are the type of people that will go home and they'll complain that things didn't go the way they wanted at the office, but when approached with the idea of going out on their own, they wouldn't be able to handle that.
That's right. Why don't we move on?
All right. So another good question is, where do these jobs come from? Like, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, where do the jobs come from?
Well, first of all, I think we need to eliminate the word job from our vocabulary. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, I think it's one of the spirit killers is, we have people say, we say, I'm gonna run a business, and people tell us, go get a job, and that's contradictory. If I'm running a business, I don't want to go get a job. I need to go get a customer. I need to go get some customers.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So money comes to those that create value in the marketplace for other human beings. Mm-hmm. The purpose of a business is to create a customer, because without customers, we can't make money. And so the more we can identify people with problems, and then we can provide solutions to those problems, then if we're a solution provider, then we become employed, if you will, in the solution of that problem, getting paid for it.
Right, and then if you do well, you can actually provide jobs for other people.
Yeah, okay, so that's the whole point. Yeah, where do the jobs come from? The jobs come from your own. So what's interesting about this book is it's a book on being a better entrepreneur by stoking your own or building your own spirit. And the result of that is when your business grows, jobs are created.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, I think you already covered the question about posing a paradigm shift. Do you have anything else you want to say about that?
The paradigm shift is simple. It's just go to school, get a good education, get a job, or start your own business. And so, if we want to have a thriving America tomorrow, we need to nurture our entrepreneurial spirit today. And if you as an individual want to have a thriving business tomorrow, you need to nurture your own entrepreneurial spirit today. And so it's all about being a constant learner about how to run your business more effectively.
Yeah, it's very interesting because you're coming from a corporate point of view, and I'm coming from where I'm surrounded by entrepreneurs, and it's interesting to hear your side of the story, because a lot of the people I know are already very entrepreneurial, whether they're work-at-home moms or dads, or they've created businesses out of nothing, and have been able to therefore employ people. And like you said, while one part of the country is losing jobs, I'm involved with an industry that is creating jobs. So it's quite interesting to see the differences between the way you see what's going on and the way I see what's going on. Now, how does your book relate to the Occupy Wall Street movement?
Okay. Well, first of all, I wanted to just make a comment on what you just said. And I've actually been I've been self-employed for the last 20 years, although before that, for another 15 years, I was in corporate America. So I know both sides. Mm-hmm. But I'm also out in the world. So now I'm in California, and most people here, there's a mix of people that have jobs and a mix of people that have entrepreneurs. So mm-hmm. I basically run into all types. I find it very unique that, well, maybe not so that all or most of the people are entrepreneurs, because that in other parts of the world, everybody's looking for jobs. So I guess it has to do with geography and the circles that we travel in. And I tend to cross a lot of lines and travel through different tribes, if you will.
Yeah.
And I see many sides of that coin. Occupy Wall Street is a bunch of people that they were promised that if they went to school and got a good education, that the jobs would be there, and the jobs aren't there. So what I tell Occupy people is if you want a dream job, you may need to create it for yourself.
Mm-hmm. That's a great response to them.
Yeah, it's okay to be angry that there are puppet masters and there are greedy people that do pull the strings, and it's okay to be angry at them. But ultimately, at some point, you need to become self-reliant, because we've created a culture of people that have become employer-reliant. And if you can't be self-reliant as an entrepreneur or employer-reliant as an employee, then you end up either being government-reliant, family-reliant, or charity-reliant.
That's another good point. All right. So now, why is it that when a foreigner comes to America and they start a business, they seem to do better than some of our own citizens that are looking to possibly maybe start their own business?
Well, foreigners, the parents of foreigners, they don't say go to school and get a job. They say go to America. It's the land of opportunity. Mm-hmm. You can start your own business, which is completely different than what we tell our own kids, which is go to school and get an education and get a job. Mm-hmm. So they see America as the land of opportunity, where we see America as the land of great colleges, where you can get a higher education and get a job.
That's pretty funny. That's an interesting analogy, because there are a whole lot of colleges in this country. All right, now
colleges.
Go ahead.
Colleges are there to make a profit.
Yeah.
Colleges are there to make a profit. We think that they're there to provide some kind of life skills. They're there to make a profit. They sell education. It's a big business. Yeah.
Yeah, education is a huge business, and I'm sure in times when the economy is down, as long as the government is providing grants and loans, they can. That just brought up an interesting point in my head. Everybody's yelling about the government saving, the big banks and everything. Every day, every year for the past 100 years, the government saves educational institutions because they provide federal loans, they provide federal grants, they provide, ways for students to get financial aid to be able to go to school, which keeps the schools in business.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
And the problem is it's on the government's agenda as opposed to what really works in terms of putting people into being self-reliant.
Yep. In your book, you say there's no such thing as unemployment. What do you mean by that?
Well, if you think about it, if you're self-employed, say you have 100 customers, everybody's self-employed.
Yep.
If you have 100 customers and you lose a customer, you got 99 customers. If you have a job, you're self-employed. You just have one customer. You've made the classic mistake. You got all your eggs in one basket. If you lose that one customer, you're basically screwed. And if you're unemployed, you're self-employed with no customers. So everybody is self-employed.
That's a pretty unique approach. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. So that's what I mean by there is no such thing as unemployment. Everybody's self-employed. And the moment that you make a decision to, provide service in exchange for money, boom, you are now self-employed. You're only one sales transaction away from improving your personal economy, and you're only one sales transaction away from being employed. If you make a sale and you need to deliver on that sale in the form of some kind of service, you can have an income until that service is off, is finished. And of course, there's no rules that say that you're limited to only one customer at a time.
That's true. Unless you have an exclusivity contract, which nobody should be signing these days.
Yeah, well, I guess there's a time and a place for that, but
right.
And that's most employers. That's what they do is they trade time for dollars, and they want you there 40 hours, and it's a big mistake to actually get paid by the hour. In my book, I talk about 10 different compensation models, but hourly pay is the worst, because time is more valuable than money. You can always get more money.
and you can't get more time. True.
Yeah, life is really short.
So, yeah, some of us know that all too well. Now, in your book, you also say that there's two economies. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, there's a macroeconomy and a microeconomy. I'm sure you've heard the serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I can't change, the courage to know the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And too many people are worried about the macroeconomy, what's going on in Congress and who the president is and all of that. And the microeconomy is what I was saying earlier. You're only one sales transaction away from improving your personal economy. And what I hear, when I hear people say the economy's bad, what I personally hear is, in other words, your sales and marketing process isn't working. Because if your cash register was ringing, if your sales and marketing was working, then you wouldn't be saying the economy's bad. Do you think anybody at Apple Computer is saying the economy's bad?
Nope.
Why? Because their cash register's ringing and their sales and marketing and innovation is working.
Right, and that was the key word that you just said, innovation. They came up with something, they listened to their customers, and they continually provide what it is their customers are asking them for. And all of the successful entrepreneurs that I know are doing the same thing. They listen to the people who are their customers. They may have started out with only a few, and then they've gotten bigger because they listen and they supply according to their own skill set. They supply what their customers need, and if they can't supply what they need, they're able to find other people to connect with to get that service for their customers. So that's key. Innovation and point of difference are the key to being able to be successful as an entrepreneur.
Yes, and I believe that innovation and creativity are learnable skills. They're skills that can be nurtured and harvested and improved, and we all have the seeds of creativity within us.
Yeah, we just don't know they're there. A quick funny story, a friend of ours who's heavily into analytics, and he's always, comparing things and dissecting things, and he published a book on Kindle a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, it's got to be about, statistics. It was a book of poetry. I'm like, wait a minute. So he found his creative energy within him, even though he, still is a very statistical, analytical person.
Yes.
A lot of entrepreneurs have that dichotomy. They have, they're using both sides of their brain instead of one or the other.
Well, we all have two sides to our brain, and we can all use both sides of it. Most of us have just developed one side more than the other, but to be a full human being is to use your whole brain. And I think we really limit ourselves if we box ourselves in to think we're one or the other.
Yeah, it's pretty funny because there's a contestant on a local on a reality show, and someone mentioned that he always thinks outside of the box, and the mentor for that person said, "I don't think he knows there is a box. He doesn't know the box exists." So.
What box? I destroyed the box decades ago.
Exactly. So now, also in your book, you say there are 21 spirit killers. Can you tell us, what are, the biggest spirit killers and how people can overcome them?
Sure. I'll just rattle off a few off the top of my head. One is, the biggest reason people don't get what they want is they don't know what they want. So you need to have a definite purpose to succeed in business. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have that, you're going to have a hindered spirit. Also, when people start businesses, we hear a lot of failure statistics. There's just a lot of fear around starting a business because we hear about all these businesses that fail. And to overcome that, you need to focus on doing everything right. Mm-hmm. Also, a non-supportive environment is another spirit killer. Yeah,
that's one that you got to work. A lot of people have to work around.
Yeah, and that could just be, what does your office look like? Is it messy or is it clean? Is it organized or is it not? And that's one kind of environment. I also find a situation where people are married and they have a spouse. Either way, it's either the husband or the wife. So one is trying to run a business and the other one has a different agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important that that if you're going to run a business, that you have buy-in from your spouse and that that you can align them and get them moving in the same direction as the business.
Yeah, not wonder why the grass didn't get cut while they were sitting there working on a sales proposal or finishing a novel or marketing something. And you have to know that they understand when each other is working.
Right.
Do you find that most entrepreneurs work from home, or do a lot of them go set up in offices?
I work with all kinds, some work at home, some work at offices, some travel a lot, they kind of live out of a suitcase.
Okay.
So being an entrepreneur itself is kind of not location dependent.
Yeah.
Some people, if you're a manufacturing entrepreneur, you're going to have a, manufacturing facility. If you're just selling other people's products or services, that doesn't necessarily tie you to an office. I do feel that, for certain businesses, obviously for certain businesses, it's required to have a certain kind of location to deliver your product or service.
Right.
But for many businesses, a lot more people are going virtual, and that's fine too.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, since our audience is mostly authors or aspiring authors, what would be, you tackled taking on this book, what would be your advice to someone who wanted to write a book, and how would they get started?
Well, it took me a while, but, you really want to get crystal clear of what is your objective. For me, I could have written another. I know a lot about sales and marketing, and yet I feel like there's a lot of sales and marketing books out there, and I didn't want to be like everyone else. So I wanted to do something unique.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a combination of, if you want to make money, you need to combine two factors. One is do what you love.
Mm-hmm.
There was a book written, Do What You Love and the Money Will Follow, back in the 70s, and chapter 7 of that book is Where is the Money?
Right.
So doing what you love is not enough. You also need to do something that there's a market demand for or that people are starving for. So
like you said, just make sure you define that at the beginning, whether you're writing fiction to entertain people or you're writing nonfiction to educate people. Make sure you're doing something a little different than everybody else, like you just said, and just jump into it and do it.
Well, not just different. I mean, a great marketer one time, he said, if you had a restaurant, you could have a restaurant that had one advantage over all others. What would that advantage be? And one marketing wizard said, location, location, location. He said, okay, that's a good answer. And the next guy said, I'd want the best chef. Mm-hmm. He says, okay, that's a good answer. And the next person said, I'd want the cheapest food. And he says, okay, that's a fair answer. And the next person said, I'd want a place with great ambience, a very comfortable place. He says, okay, that's a good answer. And the next person said, well, I would like a location that had great customer service.
Mm-hmm.
He says, those are great answers. But he said, if I had a restaurant and I had one advantage over all others, he said, I'd want a starving crowd. If I had a starving crowd, it's like people would walk off the beaten path. Location's not so important.
Yep.
If I had a starving crowd, it doesn't matter if I'm serving lobster or hot dogs. People, since they're starving, they'll buy whatever I serve. Mm-hmm. If I have a starving crowd, they don't need ambience. They'll eat off the street. And if I have a starving crowd, you don't even need good customer service. You can even be rude to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just about who you are and what you want to write. That's an important piece, but you need to connect that with the world of who's starving for this. Is that, how can I understand what people are silently begging for? Because, if you can just write a book for the sake of writing, and that's fine if you're just trying to amuse yourself, but, if you want to actually sell books, then you want to resonate with something at a deeper level. So you need to understand your marketplace.
Okay.
Your market will determine your marketing.
Yeah, and I think that's something a lot of authors struggle with, especially first-time authors, because they're like, well, I don't know, I'll write the book and people will find it and read it. And, they don't understand I see that in your bio, you're a practitioner in neuro-linguistic programming, which I think, I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I think it kind of means, you look into seeing what people need and how they can provide it.
Yeah, well, yeah. NLP is a pretty deep subject, but
but it's getting inside your head and pulling out something so that you know what people need.
There's a fine line between elicitation and installation, and here's a mistake a lot of authors make, is they just kind of write, well, I have this story about my grandpa, or I have this story about my summer vacation, or, my hot romance, okay? And whatever it is, I mean, ultimately, it's not about me, the writer. It's about you, the audience, that really wants to get some value from this. Whether, if it's nonfiction, you want to offer valuable information that people can use, they can relate to, etc. If you're writing fiction, you want to write, something that's entertaining and puts people on a journey. There's a book right now called 50 Shades of Grey that's selling like hotcakes, and I think it really resonates with people's, deep, it's a romance novel. It's a trashy romance novel. But,
it is. I haven't read it, but I know what you mean.
But people want to be taken on an adventure, and they want to explore their fantasies, or they want to kind of have some, people want to feel. They want to have an experience. They want to feel more alive. And so whatever you're writing, don't just do it for yourself. Do it for your reader. And if your readers read it and they like it, then it's going to do a lot better.
Here's a question that we kind of didn't touch on. When you wrote your book, did you have anyone edit it with you, or did you just write it yourself and put it out there?
Well, I worked really hard on trying to get it right the first time. And then the next phase is I read it. I took the book and read the whole book chapter by chapter into a recorder. And by reading it, it was a way for me to find a lot of sentence structures that didn't work. And so I was able to correct things as I was reading. It's like, oh, that sentence doesn't work. So it's one thing to like type at a keyboard or write on the yellow pad, but when you actually verbalize it, that is a good editing process. And then after that, I had 4 or 5 people that I sent transcripts to, and they edited it also and gave me some feedback and input. And all that being said, I still have a couple typos in there, but overall I'm very proud of the work that I put out there.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's another thing that a lot of authors are relaying is as a good system for new authors to use. Even if you think your book is perfect, A, read it out loud. B, give it to somebody, anybody, especially someone who doesn't know your subject if it's nonfiction. Or even if it is fiction, someone who doesn't know that much about science fiction, and see if they can connect, and if they follow the story, or if they see holes in your information. Like you said, you read something out loud and you go, wait, that didn't make any sense at all. And I had one author that told me that she would watch her reader. She had a reader that would come and read in her house, and she would watch her face, and she would be like, you already passed this part and you didn't laugh. that was supposed to be a joke, and the reader looked up at her and said, wasn't funny. And so she learned by, watching the person reading her book that, some things didn't work quite the way they were supposed to. So surround yourself with at least a few people, and don't try and do it all yourself, is what I think I heard you saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and if I had to do it again, I would take maybe, my chapters are very short. They're only like between 1 and maybe 5 or 6 pages. Mm-hmm. So I have a lot of little sections in mine, mm-hmm. which makes it very digestible. I tried to write in a way that was easy for the reader to read.
Yes.
And I tried to write in a layout that is similar to layouts that I feel comfortable reading.
Okay.
And so if I had it to do all over again, what I would do would be to take, maybe 2 or 3 of those mini chapters, maybe 10 or 15 or 20 pages, and give them to different people and say, could you just edit this little section of the book?
Yeah, and see if it stands on its own. That's a great idea.
Because, everybody gets bug-eyed at one point.
Yeah. The first 3 or 4 chapters, even 10 chapters, they get a lot of attention, and then the chapters near the end of the book, nobody gets that far. So, all right. Well, Joe, it's been great. It's great to have you on our podcast. How can people get a hold of you? Where's the location for your book? What's your social media?
Sure. My website's rapidresultsmarketing.com. Mm-hmm. And that's got the title. When you go to the website, you'll find the book there. The book is called Resurrecting America's Entrepreneurial Spirit. Mm-hmm. If they want to get on my Facebook, it's facebook.com/Nicassio, Nicassio.
Okay.
And I do have a Facebook page. If you go to facebook.com/Boost Your Spirit.
Oh, I like that. Okay. Boost.
And the book is available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com, and getting good reviews. Oh, that's something else authors might want to know is, it is important to get good reviews of your book. I did a little bit too much Twitter tweeting one day, and somebody accused me of being a spammer, and I said, and they wanted me to give away my book for free. They were coming from like a very communist point of view.
Okay.
And I said, well, I don't give my stuff away for free. And I said, if you check on Amazon, it's got nothing but good reviews. Mm-hmm. About 10 minutes later, I got a tweet back, and it said, check your reviews because they're not all good anymore.
Oh, no.
So I had a hater that organized 2 hate reviews, mm-hmm. even though they never read the book. So it's crazy. We live in a crazy world. Yeah. But you know what? It's like you just have to take it with a grain of salt because they really never read the book, and I know I put a quality product out there.
Right.
So, but it's, we live in a world now where everything's under a microscope. You have to walk through the world. Like everything I do is on video camera.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I just thought I'd bring that up just as, you know, for authors, they need to know that, even if you write the greatest book in the world, you're going to find haters. Yeah.
I put out a photography book, and someone said they all look like they were done with Instagram, and I'm like, yeah, tell that to my $2,000 worth of camera equipment and my, couple $1,000 worth of computer equipment, and they were just they just wanted to find something to complain about. So, but yeah, it's a good idea to get review copies of your book out there ahead of time when you're getting ready to launch, and get those reviews so that you can put them on your book cover, and so you can get people to go to Amazon and start you out with the positive reviews so that when the negative ones come along, they're outnumbered.
Yeah, my positive reviews outweigh my negative ones, but yeah, get it out there, and the main thing is put together a quality product, and don't think just about yourself, think about your audience.
That's great advice. Great advice. Well, once again, thank you so much for joining us. for all of our listeners that are listening to this on iTunes. Joe gave his website information there a minute ago. Just kind of rewind and go back and get it. And they'll also be in our show notes, which will be on BookGoodies.com. Just search for Joe Nicassio and you will find this podcast. And leave us a message or, leave some comments if you'd like. And also, we would like to encourage you, if you're listening and you're an author or a service provider for books, actually, that you can fill out our contact form to be a guest on a future podcast. And for the authors, you can fill in or tell us about your book so that you can let our blog readers see all of your wonderful books and can find them on our website. So, as always, we like to thank geekcast.fm for hosting all of our podcasts. And you can find us on Twitter, twitter.com/bookgoodies, and Facebook, facebook.com/bookgoodies. And you can find me at twitter.com/Loxley, Loxly. So, everybody, I hope you enjoyed our podcast. Thank you for listening. And get writing and have a great day.